Tashtale, good evening. This is Tibet This Week. Today's headlines. His Holiness the Dalai Lama concludes a successful visit to Mongolia. His Holiness arrives back in Japan for final leg of the Japan visit. Si Kyong speaks at the prestigious Halifax International Security Forum in Canada. The Office of Tibet Moscow organizes a conference on Tibet and Buddhism. Office of Tibet Brussels calls on Socialist Group of European Parliament. Office of Tibet Taiwan hosts a Minzikang outreach team in Taipei. 2 Tibetan women stage a peaceful protest in Tibet. Si Kyong receives a standing ovation in the Canadian House of Commons. The Tibetan spiritual leader, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, concluded a successful visit to Mongolia. His Holiness arrived last Friday in Ulaanbaatar, the capital city of Mongolia, to a rousing welcome amidst the early winter snow. The Indian ambassador, Mongolian supporters, and officials at the airport warmly received His Holiness. During his 6-day stay in Ulaanbaatar, His Holiness delivered a public address at the Central Cultural Palace and Restless Palace, attended a Buddhist meeting at the Kanden Thekchen Ling Monastery, and addressed an international conference on Buddhism and science. Besides engaging with academicians, His Holiness also received an honorary degree. Chinese government raised objection to this visit and asked Mongolia to bar the visit, citing dampened ties with its northern neighbor. His Holiness first visited Mongolia in 1979. When he arrived back in 2002, the Chinese side had protested the visit and had closed the border with Mongolia for 2 days. When His Holiness visited Mongolia in 2006, China cancelled flights between Beijing and Ulaanbaatar. His Holiness's last visit to the country was in year 2011. His Holiness arrived back in Japan to complete the final leg of his visit. Earlier this month, His Holiness gave an audience to over 150 Chinese followers and advised them to follow and study their ancestors' religion. His Holiness said different religious traditions in this world preach development of positive values such as love, compassion, generosity, and patience, but Buddhist philosophy is the most detailed and it can go hand in hand with science. While in Tokyo, His Holiness paid a visit to the Japanese Parliament and interacted with 229 parliamentarians from different political parties on the theme Tibet and Japan in the Global World. His Holiness praised Japan as the most industrialized democratic country in Asia with very rich tradition of Shintoism and Buddhism. He expressed respect for the Shinto tradition of loving and respecting all forms of nature. Speaking to members of the newly instituted Parliamentary Support Group for Tibet in the Japanese Parliament, His Holiness said that their support for Tibet issue represents a universal commitment to justice and truth. Tibetan political leader Si Kyong Dr. Lobsang Sengye attended the 8th Halifax International Security Forum from 18th to 20th November. At the forum, Si Kyong participated in the panel discussion, Power Corrupts, Corruption Corrodes. Si Kyong also spoke on women and inclusiveness, and climate security, energy security, and the politics of slow-moving threats. He raised the importance of Tibetan Plateau as the water tower of Asia, affecting billions of lives in the downstream countries. The forum was organized by Canada's Ministry of National Defence, led by Honourable Harjit Sajjan, and attended by a host of international leaders, including Sir Michael Fallon, United Kingdom Secretary of State for Defence, Jean-Yves Le Drian, France Minister of Defence. The forum was also attended by Turkey's Minister of European Union Affairs, Croatian President, Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister, Estonian Defence Minister, and NATO Deputy Secretary General. A bi-party United States congressional delegation led by Senator John McCain also took part in the 3-day forum. The Halifax International Security Forum is North America's leading foreign affairs and defense conference. It was also the first major meeting of the top political and military leaders after the 2016 United States elections. The Office of Tibet Taiwan hosted an outreach tour for Tibetan Medical and Astro Institute featuring exhibitions on Tibetan systems of medicine and astrosciences, lectures and free oral consultations in Taipei, Taichung, and Kaohsiung. The Taiwan Outreach Tour is a part of a larger program of Tibetan Medical and Astro Institute to celebrate its centenary. The Office of Tibet Brussels representative Tashi Phuntsok and EU Advocacy Officer Rizin Chödön Taekang met with Member of European Parliament Panzeri Pier Antonio and his staff at the European Parliament. Mr. Panzeri is an Italian member of European Parliament from the Socialists and the Democrats. The meeting was significant not only to expand and strengthen Tibetan network in the European Parliament, but also to increase and obtain stronger support from members of European Parliaments of the socialist groups. Office of Tibet Moscow organized a 2-day international roundtable conference on Tibetan Buddhism at the prestigious Russian Academy of Sciences in Moscow. More than 30 Tibetologists and research scholars, including research fellows at the Dharamshala-based Tibet Policy Institute, took part in the discussions. Opening the roundtable conference, Telutu Rinpoche, honorary representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama to Russia, Mongolia and CIS countries, noted that Tibet is going through many changes, some good changes but mostly unfortunate, and encouraged the scholars and historians and academicians to keep the momentum alive by closely studying the changing situation. He reminded the conference that the Tibet issue must be studied from various aspects, including its culture, identity, religion, folklore, and especially its fragile environment. On Tuesday last week, 2 Tibetan women staged a peaceful demonstration in the streets of Ngaba town in Amdo region of eastern Tibet. However, the identification of 2 Tibetan women and their whereabouts following the protests remain unknown. A footage of the demonstration circulating online appears to show the 2 Tibetan women clad in traditional Tibetan attire walking down the street wearing photographs of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and raising slogans such as "Long live His Holiness the Dalai Lama." The Canadian Parliamentary Friends of Tibet hosted a reception for Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Sengye to honor his visit to Canada. Over 20 members of Canadian Parliament representing diverse political parties attended the reception. The gathering expressed their unanimous support for human rights and environmental protection in Tibet. This is Sikyong's first visit to Ottawa since the Liberal Party came to power last year. Sikyong expressed concern over destruction of Larunggar Monastery, one of the biggest institutions of Buddhist learning in Tibet, and the anti-mining protest that took place in Decheng County, incorporated into China's Yunnan province. On the sidelines of the visit, Sikyong also spoke to members of the Canadian press, including an interview with the Globe and Mail, the largest newspaper in Canada. Reuters also published a piece on Sikyong's visit titled, "Canada should be ready to press China over Tibet, says exiled Prime Minister." On Tuesday this week, Sikyong Dr. Lobsang Sengye received a standing ovation in the Canadian House of Commons. Arif Virani, Chair of Parliamentary Friends of Tibet, introduced Sikyong to the House and lauded the middle way policy.
To speak about Tibetan leader Dr. Lobsang Sengye. His Holiness the Dalai Lama relinquished political leadership of the Tibetan community in 2011, and Dr. Sengye was the first person elected ever to the post of Sikyong, or government leader, that same year. Born in a Tibetan refugee settlement in India, Dr. Sengye is a Fulbright scholar and the first Tibetan to ever receive an SJD degree from Harvard. Thousands of Tibetans in my riding of Parkdale High Park and around the world see Dr. Sengye as a strong advocate for the middle way approach. The middle way seeks nothing more than greater autonomy for Tibet within China. It is an approach that would peacefully resolve the issue of Tibet and bring about stability and coexistence based on the concepts of equality and mutual cooperation. I salute Dr. Sengye, as well as Mr. Pempa Sering, the official representative of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for their important work in promoting awareness about the middle way approach. For their vital efforts, I say, Tashi Dele.
That's all for today. Have a good weekend.